Hello, so it's me again. Good evening. So I'm here to do the Caribbean folklore video. Finally, I'm finally here to do it. After a bloody month of waiting, I'm finally here to do it. So the very first Caribbean folklore I'm going to talk about is the Jamaican folklore tale about the rolling calf. So, according to RealJamaicaVacations.com, it says, be careful how you stroll around the Jamaican countryside at night, because you really don't want to meet a rolling calf. A huge calf-like creature which rolls along the road, blocking the way of nighttime travellers and chasing them with a wicked intention. Just a little sidebar. The rolling calf is known as a duppy. In Jamaica and quite a lot of Caribbean countries, we refer to spirits and ghosts as a duppy. Okay, so those are the words we use in our Caribbean culture. We use the word duppy rather than just saying ghost. We also sometimes use it interchangeably. So sometimes if we're not talking about a good spirit, we can also refer to a demon as a duppy as well. So that's just a little FYI. It has blazing red eyes that gush fire and a chain that drags behind it, making an unnerving clanking noise. And apparently the rolling calf can also shapeshift. So you may not always see a calf, even though it's referred to as a rolling calf, but you may not always see it present itself as that. To escape a rolling calf, the victim can do a number of things. Drop objects for it to count. Most supernatural creatures in Jamaican folklore can be escaped in this way. Get to a crossroads road junction before it, open a penknife and stick it in the ground. A rolling calf is also terrified of being beaten. Now, isn't that funny? A duppy afraid of being beaten? Like, how does that even make sense? How can a duppy be afraid of getting beaten? Like, how sway? Like, how can that work? I don't really understand. Like, you're a duppy, yeah? Like, how am I going to beat you? Are you even solid for me to even touch you in the first place? And you're the one who's afraid. Listen, yeah, I'm in Jamaican countryside at nighttime or whatever. You come rolling across. You come up to me, and and you're the one who's afraid of being beaten. Please. It says rolling calves are always male. Typical, ain't it? They are believed to be the spirits of people, particularly butchers, who were wicked and dishonest during their lifetimes. Ain't that interesting? The second Caribbean folklore tale I should tell you about tonight, because I'm only going to do around 5, is called Doins. So the Proud Caribbean on Twitter has referred to Doins as the spirits of children who have died before they have been baptized or christened. They are trickster spirits that mostly choose young children as their targets. They entice children away from their homes and lure them deep into the forest and abandon them there where they cannot be found or find their way home. Wicked, eh? Doins are naked and are sexless. They have no faces, only a small hole for a mouth. Hope you're not getting too creeped out yet. And larger than normal heads hidden under a straw hat. Doins' feet are turned backwards, which makes them harder to track down. To prevent the Doins from calling your children into the forest at dusk, never shout their names in open places, as the Doins will take their names, call them and lure them away. Okay, so the Succulent, I think I'm pronouncing it right, is more prevalent in Dominican, St. Lucian, Trinidadian and Guadeloupean folklore. And it's also known as the loup-garou. Also loup-garou in Haiti, Louisiana and Grenada. So kind of crossing, not just Caribbean folklore, but also a little bit of American folklore. So, and elsewhere in the Caribbean or Old Hag, in Guyana and Jamaica and Asima in Suriname, in the Bahamas, it is known as the hag. It's a kind of blood-sucking hag. Okay, so it says the Sukian is a shape-shifting Caribbean folklore character who appears as a reclusive old woman by day. By night, she strips off her wrinkled skin and puts it into a mortar. In her true form as a fireball, she flies across the dark sky in search of a victim. The Sukian can enter the home of her victim through any sized hole like cracks, crevices, and keyholes. Sukian suck people's blood from their arms, legs, and soft parts while they sleep, leaving blue-black marks on the body in the morning. So she really is like a vampire. If the Sukian draws too much blood, it is believed that the victim will either die and become a Sukian or perish entirely, leaving her killer to assume her skin. The Sukian practices black magic. Sukians trade their victims' blood for evil powers with Bazil, the demon who resides in the silk cotton tree. To expose the Sukian, one should heap rice around the house or at the village crossroads, as the creature will be obligated to gather every grain by grain, a Herculean task to do before dawn, so that she can be caught in the act. To destroy her, coarse salt must be placed in a mortar containing her skin, so she perishes, unable to put the skin back on. Belief in Sukians is still preserved to an extent in Guyana and some Caribbean islands, including Dominica, Haiti, Suriname, and Trinidad. The skin of the Sukian is considered valuable and is used when practicing black magic. Very interesting. Oh, so my favourite one is up next, Rose Hall. According to the legend, the spirit of Annie Palmer haunts the grounds of Rose Hall Plantation near Montego Bay. So the story of the White Witch of Rose Hall is, I would say, is probably the most popular Jamaican folklore tale. Because like pretty much like when you go to Jamaica and you're on the coach, they'll always say, do you want to go to Rose Hall? Like literally it's like I think it honestly is the most popular folklore tale. Like this spirit of Rose Hall. So it says the story dates that she was born in Haiti to an English mother, an Irish father, and spent most of her life in Haiti. When her parents died of yellow fever, she was adopted by a nanny who taught her witchcraft and voodoo. She moved to Jamaica and married John Palmer, owner of Rose Hall Plantation. Annie murdered Palmer along with 2 subsequent husbands and numerous male plantation slaves. I cannot get my words out, sorry. Later being murdered Later being murdered herself by a slave named Haku. A song about the legend called The Ballad of Annie Palmer was recorded by Johnny Cash. An investigation of the legend in 2007 by Benjamin Radford concluded that the story was fictionalized, modeled on a title character in a famous Jamaican novel, The White Witch of Rose Hall. They never believe anything is true anyway. Hold on 1 second, let me just scroll down, scroll. And wow, also seeing here that she also, before she murdered her husband, she grew tired of him and she started taking slaves lover to bed. One day, John caught her with a lover and beat her with a crop. And he took great exception to this and murdered him by poisoning his coffee. Miras. She then inherited Rose Hall for herself. Annie inherited Rose Hall and began her reign of terror on the estate. She would regularly shout orders to her slaves from her balcony and would often torture or kill any slaves who displeased her, and sometimes just to make an example of them. Annie took a string of slaves as lovers, however none of them lasted for long, as she murdered them as soon as she grew tired of them. She married twice more, but both of these husbands died, presumed murdered by Annie, who went on to inherit their wealth. The husbands were buried by slaves who she had killed before the return to the estate. Her cruel behaviour, coupled with rumours of her voodoo rituals, earned her the name the White Witch of Rose Hall. Annie's fatal mistake was to put a curse on the granddaughter of Taku, the local Obeah man. Now, that's another thing to know about Caribbean culture. Obeah is like one of the things, like, you're not sure whether it's really real or not. However, you don't really wanna try someone who claims that they practice Obeah. You just don't want to go there. Annie was trying to win the love of an English bookkeeper named Robert Rutherford. However, Rutherford was in love with the Obeah man's granddaughter Millicent, and he cursed Millicent with a visit from the Suppliant, or old hag. Outraged by his granddaughter's death, Taku, accompanied by an army of angry slaves, strangled and killed Annie. She was immediately buried in a very deep hole on Rose Hall Estate. The slaves on the estate also burned her possessions for fear that they would be tainted by her spirit. A voodoo ritual was carried out when she was buried, but it is said that this was not carried out correctly and her spirit still haunts Rose Hall to this day. It is said that the subsequent owners of the Rose Hall estate suffered early and tragic deaths, leading to the estate being unoccupied for over 130 years. Locals have reported seeing a shadowy figure in a green velvet habit riding a black horse across the estate. There were also tales of screams and hurried footprints being heard in the empty great house. Ooh, it does give you a little bit of a chill. So let's see, who am I doing next? Oh yes, Anansi. To finish off the video for today, I'm going to talk about my favourite one, even more so than Rose Hall, Anansi. So, Anansi is an Akan folklore character. He often takes the shape of a spider and is considered to be the spirit of all knowledge of stories. He is one of the most important characters of West African and Caribbean folklore. Now, Anansi is very, very popular in Jamaica, and it's because of West African, heritage. We have kept that on, so we've passed these stories on. So, you know, we didn't just ignore our African heritage. We actually still partake in that, you know. So Anansi is one of the stories that we inherited from our African ancestors, and we still to this day read stories about Anansi. He is known as Anansi, Kwaku Anansi, and Anansi. In the New World, he's known as Nancy, Aunt Nancy, and Sis Nancy. He is a spider but often acts and appears as a man. The Anansi tales originated from the Akan people of present-day Ghana. The word Anansi is Akan and means spider. They later spread to West Indies, Suriname, Sierra Leone, where they were introduced by Jamaican Maroons and the Netherlands Antilles. On Karaku, Aruba, and Bana, he is known as Kampa Nancy, and his wife as She Maria. Anansi is depicted in many different ways. Sometimes he looks like an ordinary spider, sometimes he is a spider wearing clothes, or with a human face, and sometimes he looks much more like a human with spider elements such as 8 legs. So it says, in the Ashanti culture, Anansi is a mere folklore character like Sasabanansan. Anansi is thus neither a deity nor worshipped as a god, contrary to widespread erroneous information. Neither Ashanti oral tradition nor confirmed documentary evidence lists Anansi as a deity. As a mythological figure, he is often depicted interacting with Supreme Being and other deities who frequently bestow him with temporary supernatural powers. For example, in some popular tales transmitted through oral tradition, Anansi is temporarily bestowed with powers to bring rain or to have other duties performed for him. Anansi's family include his long-suffering wife, Okono Ya, Natinkuma, his firstborn son, Kilen, his big-headed son, Miros, Nankon Hiwa, his son with a spindly neck and spindly legs, and Afudua, his pot-bellied son. See, I can't pronounce the word. I'm sorry, I don't mean to butcher West African language, but I can't pronounce those words. In modern mythology, Uthwa Sutherland introduces Anansiwa as the beautiful daughter of Anansi, for whom he devises a crafty plot to find an appropriate suitor. Typical. But yes, that is the Caribbean folklore video. I am done. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any folklore tales, like from here in the UK or in America, please let me know, because I do want to hear them and read about them. So I hope you enjoy your evening. I shall be back tomorrow evening with some videos all around Barbados, as tomorrow is the 52nd anniversary of Barbados independence. Yes. So I shall see you tomorrow. Bye.